Hello. Thank you for watching. In this video, we will learn about Japanese history together. Learning about the history of Japan is not just about memorizing events and dates. It is about learning how the country of Japan came to be what it is today, and how it has interacted with other countries along the way. Japan, with its unique culture and traditions, has been shaped by geography, nature, and a variety of influences. From the ancient times of the Jomon and Yayoi periods to the birth of the samurai and the formation of the ancient nation, a variety of events have colored the history of Japan. Religions and philosophies such as Shintoism and Buddhism have also played a major role in Japanese history. Then, after the turbulent upheavals of the Warring States period and the stable period of the Edo period, the Meiji Restoration, a major change, led Japan to become a modern nation. In the modern era, important events such as wars, economic development, post-war reconstruction followed. Today, we are facing new challenges such as low birth rate, aging society, and environmental issues. Knowing how Japan has tackled these issues throughout its history may provide useful hints for the world in the future. In this video, we will start from scratch to explain in an easy-to-understand manner your prior knowledge of Japanese history, so please stay with us until the end. You don't have to be an expert in history. Relax and let's take a look at Japan's history together. Studying Japanese history is more than just learning one area of history. Japan, a country with its own unique culture and traditions, has been deeply involved with other countries from ancient times to the present day, and has developed uniquely within that context. Therefore, studying Japanese history is very important to understand how Japan is positioned in the world, what role it played. Studying Japanese history first and foremost helps us to understand how Japanese culture, society, and values have been shaped. For example, the traditional Japanese aesthetic sense, coexistence with nature, and collectivism, characteristics that have been shaped through history. And understanding these characteristics will help us to better understand contemporary Japanese society. Furthermore, although geographically an island nation occupying a corner of East Asia, Japan has sometimes been in close contact with China and the Korean Peninsula, at other times has followed its own path, influenced by the West. Studying Japanese history with this background will give you a different perspective from the history of other countries and help you understand the diversity and complexity of world history. There are numerous fascinating aspects of Japanese history. One of them is the many dramatic events and personalities that have unfolded through history. For example, the battles of the warlords of the Warring States period and the story of the Meiji Restoration, which was a great revolution, have a unique dynamism that cannot be found in the history of other countries. Also, through Japanese history, we can see various cultural developments from the elegant court culture of the Heian period, the common people's culture of the Edo period. Studying Japanese history also provides insight into contemporary global issues. For example, Japan has a culture that places great importance on coexistence with the environment. Behind this culture lies wisdom and technology, cultivated in an environment where natural disasters are frequent. These can be of great help in considering solutions to today's environmental problem. From a foreign perspective, Japanese history differs from that of many other countries in many respects. For this reason, has a unique appeal. For example, Japan has long followed a policy of isolation, developing its own culture while minimizing outside influence. This makes its development different from that of other parts of the world, which is an interesting point when studying Japanese history. Furthermore, Japan rapidly recovered after World War II. today plays an important role in the international community as an economic superpower. As such, Japan's history contains many elements that can be learned for other countries as well. Studying Japanese history is the key to understanding the country of Japan and its place in the world. In the process, we can learn about the origins of Japanese culture and society, gain a new perspective on the challenges we face today. With this perspective, you will be able to see the world from a broader perspective and deepen your own knowledge. The origins and culture of ancient Japan are critical to understanding Japanese history. Early human activity in the Japanese archipelago dates back to the Jomon period. During this period, people were hunter-gatherers and lived in harmony with nature. One of the symbolic artifacts of the Jomon period is earthenware. Earthenware is a vessel or container made by molding clay and baking it over a fire. Jomon period earthenware is called Jomon earthenware because of the rope pattern on it, which tells us a part of Japanese culture. Jomon earthenware was used for boiling and preserving food, and even for ceremonial purposes. The appearance of earthenware greatly changed the lives of people at that time, especially in terms of its ability to preserve food for long periods of time. The intricate patterns and decorations on earthenware also reflect the aesthetic sensibilities and religious beliefs of the people of the time, symbolizing the richness of the culture of the Jomon period. Next, moving on to the Yayoi period, agriculture spread, especially rice cultivation, which was fully introduced to the Japanese archipelago. The beginning of rice cultivation had a profound impact on the social structure. People in the Yayoi period formed villages and managed their farmland together to ensure a stable food supply. This led to an increase in population and the creation of social hierarchies in each village. Earthenware designs became simpler and more functional during the Yayoi period, and played an important role in rituals related to rice cultivation and in daily agricultural work. Furthermore, in the Kofun period, royalty and powerful people began to gain power in the Japanese archipelago. The symbolic remains of this period are Kofun tumuli. Kofun tumuli are the tombs of the rulers and influential people of the time, especially known as keyhole-shaped tumuli, called anterior-posterior round burial mound. These tumuli were built by powerful people to demonstrate their authority, and their large-scale and complex structures indicate the concentration of technology and labor of the time. Inside the burial mounds, mirrors, weapons, ornaments, and earthenware were stored as burial accessories. These burials reflect the high technology of the time, the expansion of trade, and the religious and social status of the rulers. The construction of the tombs required the cooperation of the entire local community, providing important clues to understanding the social structure and concentration of power during the Kofun. Thus, the ancient culture of Japan from the Jomon to the Yayoi period and on to the Kofun period is extremely important in shaping the foundations of modern Japanese culture and society. Understanding how the customs, technologies, and beliefs developed during these periods were passed on to later Japanese society will provide a deeper understanding of Japanese history as a whole. Religion and philosophy played a very important role in the history of Japan. They have influenced the values of society, people's lifestyles, and even political and cultural development. The earliest form of religion in the Japanese archipelago was called Shinto. Shinto is a religion based on nature worship that is unique to Japan, and people believe that gods resided in mountains, rivers, forests, and other natural objects. Shinto deities are called 8 million gods, and their number is believed to be infinite. Shinto is a religion that has no specific scripture or guru, and emphasizes harmony between nature and mankind, and has remained the spiritual foundation of the Japanese people, present day. After Shinto, Buddhism has had a major influence on Japan. Buddhism was introduced to Japan via the Korean peninsula in the 6th century. Initially, Buddhism was accepted by a few as a new religion, but it eventually spread to the aristocratic and samurai classes in Japan and became deeply rooted throughout society. Buddhism provided spiritual salvation for people by teaching about life's suffering and the after. Buddhist sects unique to Japan also emerged, especially Zen and Pure Land Buddhism, which spread widely. Buddhist temples functioned not only as religious centers, but also as centers of culture and learning, and had a great influence on the cultural development of Japan. Furthermore, Japanese thought was also heavily influenced by China and incorporated the teachings of Confucianism and Taoism. Confucianism influenced Japan, especially in ethics, family relations, and political thought, and the concepts of virtue, loyalty, and filial piety permeated Japanese society. Taoism, with its emphasis on oneness with nature and the pursuit of immortality, formed its own culture, blending with Japanese Shintoism and Buddhism. The influence of these religions and philosophies on Japanese society is immeasurable. Spirit of nature worship, brought about by Shinto, the liberation from life's suffering preached by Buddhism, and the moral values propagated by Confucianism are deeply rooted in Japanese social structure, culture, and even politics. These ideas have become the foundation for the way Japanese people think and act, and their influence can be seen in many aspects even today. The formation of the ancient Japanese state is a very important turning point. Japanese history. In particular, the establishment of the Yamato imperial court and the emperor system played a major role in laying the political foundation of Japan. From the 3rd to 7th centuries, the Yamato imperial court united the powerful clans scattered throughout the Japanese archipelago and established a centralized ruling system. During this period, the political center of the Yamato court was located in the Yamato region, centering on present-day Nara Prefecture, and is therefore called the Yamato Imperial Court. The emperor system was also established during this period, and the emperor was regarded as a descendant of the gods, strengthening his authority as a ruler. This political system centered on the emperor later became the center of Japanese governance and has continued to the present day. The emperor system was not merely a symbol of political power, but also a religious and cultural center, serving to strengthen the ties between the state and Shintoism. The Ritsuryo system, introduced during this period, was also a Chinese-influenced system of governance that formed the legal foundation of the ancient Japanese state. The Ritsuryo system established a legal system and administrative structure for the state, governed from the center to the provinces, and systematized the taxation system, family register system, and labor. This system shaped Japan as a more unified nation and strengthened the centralized system. In the Heian period, culture flourished, centering on the aristocracy, and the Fujiwara clan in particular came to hold real power. With Heian Kyo, present-day Kyoto, as its capital, this period of political stability also saw the development of classical Japanese literature, art, and religion. Literary works such as The Tale of Genji and The Pillow Book were produced, and the elegant aristocratic culture flourished. On the other hand, the rise of the samurai began in the provinces, eventually leading to the establishment of the samurai government in the Kamakura period, 1185 to 1333. Foreign exchange was also active during this period. In particular, exchanges with China, Tang Dynasty, had great impact on Japanese culture, technology, and religion. By dispatching envoys to Tang, China, to learn about Chinese institutions and culture, and incorporating them into Japan, they contributed to the development of the nation. Buddhism and the culture of Chinese characters also spread widely during this period, forming the cultural foundation of Japan. Thus, the establishment of the Yamato imperial court, the establishment of the emperor system, the introduction of the Ritsuryo system, and the development of aristocratic culture during the Heian period are important elements in shaping the ancient Japanese nation. Together, these elements developed Japan's unique system of governance and culture, laying the foundation for what would follow in later periods. Toward the end of the Heian period, the aristocracy at the center of government gradually lost power, and Japanese society entered a period of great change. The local warriors emerged as a new force in the midst of this situation. Originally, warriors organized to protect local security and defend their fiefdoms, they gradually became more powerful and began to dominate the land. Thus, the warriors gradually grew into a local power and eventually became a nationwide political force. The turning point came in 1185, when Minamoto no Yoritomo destroyed the Taira clan and established the shogunate in Kamakura. This marked a major shift from the aristocracy-centered politics of the Heian period to a new political system led by the samurai. The Kamakura shogunate was the first samurai government in Japan and established a dual system of governance in which the actual power was held by the shogunate, while the emperor and the imperial court were formally present. Minamoto no Yoritomo ruled the shogunate as shogun and established a system to control the samurai throughout the country. With the establishment of the Kamakura shogunate, warrior class came to be placed at the center of Japanese society, and their values and morals spread throughout the country. In particular, the spirit of Bushido, which emphasized loyalty and honor, was fostered during this period and deeply influenced later Japanese society. The Kamakura shogunate also established a land system and legal system to protect the fiefdoms held by the samurai. This established a feudal social structure based on land, further strengthened the power of the samurai. The Kamakura period also saw important changes in cultural aspects. Buddhism became popular, especially among the warrior class, and new Buddhist sects such as Zen and Pure Land Buddhism spread. Zen Buddhism, with its teaching of attaining enlightenment, rigorous ascetic practices, influenced the spiritual development of the samurai class. The Jodo sect, on the other hand, taught that believing in the salvation of Amida Buddha would lead to rebirth in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss, and was supported by many people seeking peace in the midst of warfare. Toward the end of the Kamakura period, the power of the shogunate waned and civil strife among the samurai gradually intensified. As a result, the Kamakura shogunate fell in 1333 and moved on to the next era, the Muromachi period. However, the ruling system of the warrior class and the spirit of Bushido established in the Kamakura period continued to have a great influence on later Japanese history. With the end of the Kamakura period, Japan once again entered a period of great change. The Muromachi period began in 1333 after the collapse of the Kamakura shogunate, was also a time of upheaval. The whole of Japan embroiled in warfare. Although the Muromachi shogunate was established, its rule was unstable. Local warriors and lords once again rose to power, leading to constant strife in various regions. This eventually developed into a period of large-scale civil wars, known as the Sengoku. The Sengoku period was a time when all of Japan was divided by powerful local warlords, known as Sengoku daimyo, and the struggle for power intensified. these warring feudal lords often fought alliances and rivalries in order to protect and expand their territory. Sengoku period was a very confusing time in Japan's history. Even out of this confusion, new cultures and technologies emerged, and each region developed its own unique culture and technology. Toward the end of the Warring States period, Japan began to move toward unification once again. Three military commanders, Nobunaga Oda, Hideyoshi Toyotomi, and Ieyasu Tokugawa, were the key figures in this unification. Nobunaga, with his innovative tactics and military power, defeated the warring feudal lords of various regions one after another, paving the way for the unification of. Later, Toyotomi Hideyoshi succeeded Nobunaga, aimed to further expand his territory, and almost achieved unification of the country. After Hideyoshi's death, however, power struggles broke out again, and eventually Tokugawa Ieyasu won the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, opening the shogunate in Edo, now Tokyo. This marked the beginning of the so-called Edo period of stability that lasted for about 250 years. With the end of warfare, this period marked an important time of great change in Japanese society and the transition to a new era. After the Warring States period, Japan entered a new era of stability when Tokugawa Ieyasu established the Edo shogunate. Edo period was a period of domestic peace as well as the end of warfare, and this prolonged stability led to the great development of Japanese society and culture. The Edo shogunate system, established by Ieyasu, enabled a strong centralized rule, and various systems were put in place to control the feudal lords throughout the. This allowed the samurai class to be strictly controlled by the shogunate. Peace was maintained. During this period, Japan adopted a policy of seclusion and extremely limited contact in country. By minimizing contact with European countries such as Portugal and Spain, the government aimed to prevent the spread of Christianity and maintain order in the country. However, contact with the outside world was not completely cut off, and limited trade with the Netherlands and China was conducted. Nagasaki. This policy of isolation encouraged the development of Japan's own culture and society, and resulted in the strengthening of its unique identity. Along with economic prosperity, the Edo period was also a time when the culture of the common people flourished greatly. As agricultural production increased and urban development progressed, culture of the townspeople flourished. Ukiyo-e, kabuki, and the tea ceremony became widely popular among the common people, and the luxurious and gorgeous culture known as Genroku culture was born during this period. In particular, merchants became economically powerful, and their influence was reflected in the culture and economic activities of the town. Toward the end of the Edo period, the contradictions of the isolationist policy and the feudal system gradually began to be exposed, and dissatisfaction grew within society. The authority of the shogunate began to waver due to a combination of economic stagnation, famine, and financial difficulties of the shogunate. In addition, as Western countries expanded into Asia, Japan was also forced to open its borders to the outside world. Thus, the arrival of the U.S. fleet led by Commodore Perry at Uraga in 1853, and his call for Japan to open its borders marked the end of the Edo period and the prelude to the Meiji Restoration. Thus, the Edo period was a time of great development for Japanese society and culture, but it was also a turning point when Japan gradually began to seek a path toward modernization. Peace and prosperity of this period laid the foundation for the next era, the Meiji era, when Japan's long isolation was lifted and preparations were underway for the country to step into a new era. After the stability and prosperity of the Edo period came to an end, Japan entered a period of rapid change. The Meiji Restoration, marked by the arrival of the U.S. fleet led by Commodore Perry at Uraga in 1853, which forced Japan to open its borders to the rest of the world. Japan, which had been pursuing a policy of national seclusion, was forced to make a decision to open its borders in response to this external pressure. This brought Japan out of its long period of isolation and allowed it to resume exchanges with Western countries. But at the same time, it also caused great confusion in the domestic political and social system. The Edo shogunate was unable to cope with this external pressure and gradually lost its authority. In order to overcome this situation, clansmen and reformers from various regions rose up and began to oppose the shogunate. In 1868, the Tokugawa shogunate formally returned political power to the imperial court, ending the more than 260-year-long Edo period. The Meiji Restoration, which began in 1868, was a period of great change that transformed Japan into a modern nation. The Meiji government actively introduced Western technology and institutions and promoted rapid modernization. Reforms in the political system included the abolition of the feudal system, the abolition of feudal domains, and the establishment of prefecture, and the establishment of a centralized national system. In addition, the educational system was improved and modern industry was fostered, transforming Japan, an agricultural country, to an industrial nation, in just a few decades. Furthermore, Japan began to play a new role in the international community. Victories in the Sino-Japanese War, 1894 to 1895, and the Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to 1905, established Japan as an emerging power in Asia. This would lead to increased influence in the international community and the rise of militarism within Japan. During this period, Japan's rapid modernization and expansion of military power established its position both domestically and internationally, but also brought with it domestic social change and instability. The Meiji Restoration was a major step that led Japan out of feudal society and into a modern nation, but it was also the beginning of an era that brought new challenges and issues. Japan will continue to evolve while seeking its place in the international community and responding to changes at home and abroad. Following the Meiji Restoration, Japan rapidly modernized and established a new position in the international community. New challenges and setbacks awaited it in the early 20th century. Japan's victories in the Sino-Japanese and Russo-Japanese wars had made it a rising power in Asia, and it used its military and economic power to expand its influence overseas, including the annexation of Korea and expansion into Manchuria. However, this policy of rapid expansion resulted in increased tensions at home and abroad. In the Taisho era, 1912 to 1926, Japan experienced a brief but widespread democratic movement that gave rise to a liberal climate known as Taisho democracy. In politics, party politics was established, governments were elected, freedom of speech and civil rights were expanded. In addition, Japan entered World War I as an allied power and secured a certain status in the international community after the war. However, prosperity of this period did not last long, and economic recession and social unrest gradually worsened. In the Showa period, 1926 to 1989, combination of global economic recession and domestic political turmoil caused Japan to once again turn toward militarism. The influence of the military grew stronger and party politics gradually declined. With this, Japan gradually moved toward war. In 1931, the Manchurian Incident broke out, and Japan established the Manchukuo state and effectively brought it under its control. This action was condemned by the international community and led to Japan's withdrawal from the League of Nations. Japan then sought to further expand its territory, and in 1937, the Sino-Japanese War broke out. The war was protracted and placed a heavy burden on Japan's military power and economy. Furthermore, relations with the U.S. deteriorated in 1941, and finally the Pacific War, World War II, began. Although Japan won many victories at the beginning of the war gradually turned against it, and in 1945, atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Japan accepted unconditional surrender on August 15th, the same year. The defeat resulted in Japan's loss of territory in Asia and a devastating blow to its domestic economy. However, post-war Japan was to make a new start under the U.S.-led occupation policy. After suffering and sacrificing so much due to the war, Japan has once again started on the road to recovery. With the defeat of World War II, Japan faced a new era. After the war, Japan experienced major social reforms under the U.S.-led occupation policy. And in 1947, a new constitution came into effect, making the position of the emperor symbolic and clarifying that sovereignty belongs to the people. In addition, Article 9 of the Constitution was enacted, rejecting pre-war militarism and upholding pacifism, and declared that Japan would renounce war and would not maintain an army. With this, Japan embarked on the path of becoming a new peaceful nation. In the post-war period, Japan devoted all of its energy to rebuilding its burnt-out land and economy. With economic and technical assistance from the United States, Japan achieved rapid economic growth from the 1950s through the 1960s. During this period, Japan became one of the world's leading industrial nations, dominating the global market in areas such as automobiles and home appliances. The Tokyo Olympics, 1964, and the Osaka World Expo, 1970, were symbolic events that demonstrated to the world that Japan had achieved post-war recovery. During the period of rapid economic growth, Japanese society also underwent major changes. Urbanization progressed, many people migrated from rural areas to cities, and the nuclear family developed. In addition, spread of education and the improvement of living standards changed Japanese culture and values. While economic prosperity brought affluence, new social problems emerged, such as overcrowding in urban areas, environmental problems, harsh working environment. However, after the oil shocks of the 1970s, Japanese economy gradually slowed its pace of growth, and in the late 1980s, Japan entered a period of extraordinary economic overheating, known as the bubble economy. Collapse of the bubble economy plunged Japan into a prolonged period of economic stagnation in the 1990s, known as the lost decade. During this period, Japan was forced to search for a new way of society as well as to rebuild its economy. Japan's post-war recovery and growth, along with its economic prosperity, led to Japan once again becoming a country that plays an important role in the international community. However, addressing the social changes and problems that arose in the process remains a challenge Japan still faces today. In the future, Japan must continue to search for new ways to realize a sustainable society based on its past history. After post-war reconstruction and rapid economic growth, modern Japan faces new challenges. In particular, the declining birth rate, aging population, and economic stagnation are having a serious impact on Japanese society. And solutions to these problems are urgently needed. The low birth rate and aging population are the result of significant changes in the demographic structure. due to a decline in the birth rate and an increase in average life expectancy. This has raised issues such as a shrinking labor force and rising Social Security costs. And new measures are required to maintain economic growth. The declining birth rate and aging population are also contributing to the widening gap between rural and urban areas. The concentration of young people in urban areas is increasing, and depopulation in rural areas is becoming more serious. In response, policies aimed at regional development and local revitalization have been introduced. Fundamental solutions have yet to be found. These changes in social structure are expected to have a significant impact on Japan's future, and the response to these changes is an important issue for the future stability and development of Japan. Modern Japan is also facing environmental issues. Pollution problems brought about by rapid economic growth and the need to respond to climate change have made the realization of a sustainable society a major theme. Governments, businesses, and civil society are working together to promote the introduction of renewable energy and environmental protection activities in an effort to pass on a healthy global environment for the next generation. Particularly since the Great East Japan earthquake, the debate over the pros and cons of nuclear power generation has intensified, and a shift in energy policy has become a major issue. Furthermore, with the advancement of globalization, modern Japan is playing an increasingly important role in the international community. While maintaining its status as an economic superpower, Japan is also influencing the world through technological innovation and cultural exchange. In particular, Japanese pop culture and traditional culture have become popular around the world and have gained international influence as part of its soft power. While this has strengthened Japan's presence on the international stage, the question is how Japan can maintain and develop its position in cooperation and competition with other countries. Thus, modern Japan is moving into a new era with many challenges and possibilities. It is important to look back at past history to consider how Japan should move forward and what kind of future it should build. Going forward, Japan will continue to learn from its history, adapt to change, and seek its own unique path in the world. Studying Japanese history is not merely a matter of learning about past events. It provides us with important clues for considering the challenges we face today and the paths we must take in the future. Throughout its long history, Japan has built up its own unique culture and social structure and overcome numerous challenges. Historical turning points, such as the unification of Japan from the chaos of the Warring States period, the prolonged peace of the Edo period, and the modernization brought about by the Meiji Restoration, show that Japan has always accepted and adapted to change and challenges. Today, Japan faces new challenges such as low birth rates, an aging population, environmental issues, and globalization. But it must be willing to tackle these issues while drawing on lessons learned from its past history. By looking back on history, we can analyze past failures and successes, and use this as a basis for gaining wisdom to build a better future. Studying Japanese history also allows us to understand Japan's place in the world through comparisons with other cultures and history. Japanese history has always developed interaction with and influence from the outside world. For example, the introduction of Buddhism and Western culture contributed to the diversity and depth of Japanese culture and its unique development. These historical events are important in understanding how Japan has accepted influences from other countries and integrated them with its own culture. Finally, the study of Japanese history is also key to a deeper understanding of our own identity. Japanese culture, values, and society have been shaped over a long history. By understanding this, we can learn about our roots and think more deeply about our roles and responsibilities in modern society. In this way, Japanese history is not merely a record of the past, but a valuable source of knowledge that can provide us with various suggestions for our present and future lives. By continuing to engage with Japanese history and learning as much as we can from it, we can build a more prosperous and sustainable future. This is the end of this video. What did you think? If you like it, please subscribe to our channel and give us a high rating so that we can make more in-depth videos explaining each period in more detail. Thank you very much for watching.